It's not a very good afternoon. It's cloudy with sleet or snow falling now in parts of Wakefield. In Leeds, we seem to have a fairly dry afternoon after a lot of rain earlier on. Moderate southerly breeze, mainly dry this evening and overnight with a slight frost as temperatures hit freezing overnight. Winds will decrease overnight. Tomorrow, cloudy with more sleet or snow on the way. 3 degrees tonight.
West Yorkshire's weather. Radio Aire, first on news.
The 4 o'clock news with John Shires. The Ferry Strike has been called off. The National Union of Seamen has agreed in the High Court to instruct all its members to return to work. The NUS had been defending an action brought by Sealink and P&O Ferries to seize its funds after seamen carried out secondary strike action crippling ferry services throughout Britain. Ken Goodwin reports.
The strike went against an injunction obtained by the 2 ferry companies against seamen taking secondary strike action. Today in the High Court, Seamen's Union leader Sam McCluskey agreed to tell his members to go back to work. He says the NUS simply isn't rich enough to risk having its assets seized.
We could have seen this union broken financially if we had went along the course we were taking.
But some seamen are furious over what they see as a climb down. Belfast NUS spokesman Bob Maskey.
We call upon Sam McCluskey to resign as General Secretary forthwith.
And Mr McCluskey's union could face another blow. P&O Ferries now say they intend to sue for losses caused by the strike.
Mrs Thatcher says the threatened Ford strike will put other workers' jobs at risk. Results of a ballot at more than 20 of the car giant's plants show that 60% have rejected a 3-year pay and productivity deal. The Prime Minister has been telling MPs that the Ford workers are risking their own futures and those working in the component industry.
Strikes put the jobs in jeopardy of those who go on strike and also put the jobs in jeopardy of those who supply components and other materials to the factories. And if the latter's jobs are in jeopardy, they should blame the Ford workers.
And the Education Secretary, Kenneth Baker, is announcing the abolition of the Inner London Education Authority in the Commons this afternoon. The controversial Labour-run body is expected to be scrapped by mid-1990. Production's expected to resume on the evening shift at Denby Grange Pit south of Wakefield, where miners were sent home earlier today following another dispute between management and pit deputies over rostering. That's now been resolved and the NACOD's men went down the pit this afternoon to carry out safety checks, but it wasn't in time to save afternoon shift production. However, things should be back to normal by the evening shift. A worker's been killed after being buried under 20 tonnes of slurry at a coal washery at Maesteg in Mid Glamorgan. Another man, also trapped in the bunker 20 feet underground at the British coal site, was freed by firefighters. Survivors of the King's Cross fire tragedy are expected to receive payments from the £500,000 disaster fund before the summer. A panel of assessors will soon start examining individual circumstances of those caught in the blaze and the bereaved. Michael O'Neill reports.
Trustees of the fund have sent a message to survivors of the fire in which 31 people died, saying the amounts awarded will depend on hardship and suffering. They aim to distribute most of the £500,000 by the end of June. Meanwhile, here at the disaster inquiry, it's been learned that twice as many police as normal were on duty at King's Cross on the night of the disaster because the Queen was at nearby Euston, and that some of those officers were quickly able to raise the alarm and begin evacuation.
Detectives in Leeds are hunting a gang of men who robbed a sub-post office in South Leeds earlier today after threatening staff with screwdrivers. They escaped with what's said to be a 4-figure sum from the Cottingley Post Office as several elderly people collecting pensions looked on. The trio who burst into the building were all Afro-Caribbean. It's thought a 4th man could have been involved as the driver of a getaway car. A man's been jailed for 10 years for raping a 16-year-old girl and then raping a young woman while out on bail awaiting trial for the attack on the teenager. Angie Wild reports from Bristol Crown Court.
The prosecution said Tanner lured the schoolgirl from a Bristol railway station to a nearby park and raped her in an alley before dumping her back at the station. He was arrested at his home the following day after giving his name and address to his victim. 2 months later, while on bail, he persuaded a friendly neighbour to give him a lift, but produced a knife and dragged her screaming into a barn where he threatened to mutilate her unless she gave in. Passing sentence, the judge, Mr. Justice Payne, told Tanner, "The thing that really makes my blood run cold is your threat. If she didn't give in, you have no regard whatsoever."
And finally, the suffragettes who chained themselves to the railings of number 10 Downing Street in 1918 have been commemorated on the anniversary of women being granted the vote. 70 years ago today, women over the age of 30 were allowed to vote in a general election. Margaret Shields reports.
A procession of women wearing sashes with the names of all the 139 women who ever became MPs marched through the streets of London. The group included present-day MPs as well as suffragettes. Catherine Griffiths, who's now 102, landed in jail in 1912 for what she did to the then Prime Minister Lloyd George.
Hammer the nails in the seats for a Tory.
She says while she doesn't like today's Prime Minister, she wouldn't resort to the same stunts, as she's glad it's a woman in power.
She's cuter.
Mrs Griffiths also says she believes that the women of the 80s have got it easier and are a whole lot smarter than men.
Radio Aire News.
Peter Tait. Good music and you.